Now, I'm with you. We had James Franklin on the show a few months ago, and this is before the Trevor Pena transfer. He brought up unbidden wide receivers the problem. And obviously the stat that everybody's thrown around all offseason is 0 catches by a wide receiver in the Orange Bowl. Just not acceptable. But if you look at Penn State's depth chart, pretty much everybody else is somebody they bring back. Their top 3 wide receivers probably going to be transfers. Kyron Hudson from USC, Devontae Ross from Troy, Trevor Pena, the aforementioned from Syracuse. That was the biggest hole. And it felt like for once they went out and tried to fill it.
For once is an interesting thing because there's been a position that's been sort of consistent over the last couple of years looking at the portal is wide receiver. Now, Penn State has an approach, and I think they still have this approach to an extent, where you don't want to upset the apple cart. You don't want to upset the guys in the room. You don't want to, just do too much to upset the room. But they reached a point where it had gotten unavoidable, really. You look at the Orange Bowl, and I think that is a sum of the rest of the issues that they had. Now, granted, you had a Mackey Award winner in Tyler Warren. You had 2 running backs that were hitting on all cylinders. You targeted your 5 wide receivers 5 times in the Orange Bowl. That's not enough, absolutely. But I think that there are ways to kind of explain around it, not excuse it, but explain around it. So you've got Trey Wallace, Amari Evans. Last year you had Keandre Lambert-Smith, and Penn State has been delicate about their locker room because that has developed a culture that has led them to where they're at and the mark of consistency that they're at. And now all of a sudden it's more of a roadblock than a speed bump to winning a national championship because you saw it on a national stage and it wasn't good enough. So I think they didn't go full blown scorched earth to that room, but they stopped saying we're worried about the psyche of the guys that are coming back rather than fix it. And in this year they tried to go out and fix it. They got Hudson and Ross in the winter portal, and Trevor Pena, was I guess one of the marquee guys in the spring portal. So now you've completely flipped that room. In theory, they've gone for production over potential. Amari Evans has a ton of potential as a 4-3 guy. Never really came to fruition in Penn State's offense. I still think Trey Wallace is a really good player. Like I think he'll do well at Ole Miss. I haven't really kept up with how he's doing, but I think he's a really good player. But the potential, the triangle numbers and the development landmarks and things like that kind of go out the window when you're not catching the football. And I think that's what you really get back with Kyron Hudson, with Ross. And then, of course, Pena was the most productive of all 3. So you're trading potential for production and hoping that it can do enough. You're not looking at these guys as game breakers, game changers, and things like that. You're looking at guys that can, move the sticks, can get you scores, can get you where you need to be, while your running backs do the things that you believe that they can do. And I think they've shown that they can do. And your tight ends continue to be a focal point of this offense.
What's your take on the general viewpoint of Drew Aller from the regular fan? He takes a lot of flack for the throw that he made at the end of the Orange Bowl. And in your estimation, how good is he and can he be this year?
He can be a number 1 pick. Does that mean that he's a national championship quarterback? I don't know. He's got some things that he still needs to iron out. I think he's a tremendous player. I think that he has done some things in his career that maybe get overlooked in terms of running the football, in terms of, I don't want to say changing his game, but also tailoring it to what whoever the offensive coordinator is going to be. And he slimmed down. He got more agile last year. I think it really helped him. And when you can take that upon your shoulders, run the football, or just scramble for those first downs, it can make all the difference in what you can do as a productive college quarterback versus that prototype that he is, because he's 6'5", he can throw the ball a mile, he can do all those kind of things. I've seen him make throws that 2 or 3 quarterbacks in college football can make. He's one of them. But he's got to be more consistent with the ball. He's got to be more consistent about making his reads. He's got to be more consistent about the way that he handles those situations. I mean, you've seen him on the sideline. He's a fiery, emotional guy. Does that get the best of him on the next series? It has. And his misses, especially in the Orange Bowl, were magnified by some of that stuff. And I think that I think he'll be fine. I think he can continue to be one of the better college quarterbacks in the country, but also he's kind of like Penn State, right? He's kind of like the guy that has these top level expectations, was developed into a 5-star guy. Penn State offered him as a 3-star and developed into one of the best quarterback prospects in the country. And I think he is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, if we're being frank. But is he the top guy that's going to lead you over the top? I think that is still a question that remains to be seen. And I think the world of Drew. I think the world of the way he's handled a lot of things. But at the end of the day, the kid gloves came off last year, and you continue to have high expectations because of the player that he is, because of the player that he can be.
How much does a second year with Andy Kotelnicki as the offensive coordinator change things? Because obviously he opened things up a little bit. There was always a question of how much will James Franklin let an OC open things up. But it felt like if the receiver talent had been there, this could have been a pretty dynamic offense, given what they did with Tyler Warren. With Kotelnicki and Aller together for year 2, does that mean there could be a jump?
I think so. I mean, I don't even think that's a Kotelnicki Aller thing. You get the continuity there anywhere in college football, and I think you see that because you understand the strengths that you can play off. And Andy sort of gets dropped in. I don't want to say cold turkey, but he gets dropped into using the pieces that are in place, and there were some good pieces in place. And best tight end in college football last year was there. So, and honestly, I think more about that than I think about the Kotelnicki Aller connection is that Tyler Warren had 100 and some catches, which means he had nearly 200, 150, 200 targets. They're going to have to find a way to spread that out. And I think they will. And I think you can be a more efficient offense. Even if you take the top player off of this offense, you can be more efficient because you are less predictable. You are less apt to lean on one guy. And, I think they're going to lean on those running backs pretty heavily in the running and passing game. They have a really good offensive line or they're projected to have a really good offensive line coming back. And I think the pieces are in place now. And if you can spread that ball out, get the receivers involved and be more dynamic and diverse, then it's going to make everybody look better. I mean, let's be honest, Andy Kotelnicki, smart guy, but he's at his best when he has the best players and sort of a level field to play with.
Yeah, you're not having to fool people with formation if you just have better players.
That helps, right? You can be flat out better than everybody. And I think that, like I said, I think they're going to run the football a lot. And I think that they've got the guys to do it. Katron Allen really stepped up in the playoff last year. You talk about the dynamic aspect of Nick Singleton, but Katron Allen is a guy that just sort of churned and sort of a light went on. He had a full off season for the first time this year. He's gotten his speed up a little bit. I still don't think he's a home run hitter, but at the same time, if you have 2 top 10 backs in the country and you've got an offensive line to run behind, why wouldn't you? So all the attention, I think, is on the receivers coming in, and rightfully so, because that is the piece that needs fixed the most, no doubt. But when you've got these guys coming in that have the potential to carry this game for 11, maybe even 12 games in your schedule this year, it used to be a situation where you could, you roll over 9 games and then you'd have the 3 that were toss-ups, if you will. But I think Penn State has the ability to run the football against pretty much any team on their schedule and have some success.
Luke Reynolds, how good is he? Tight end.
Going to be good. He's going to be good, and I can't talk about Luke Reynolds without talking about Khalil Dinkins, who is the guy that is going to be the starter at tight end. And let's be honest, Penn State's got 2, maybe 3 starters at tight end every year. That's the way they do things, kind of fabric of the program right now. But Khalil Dinkins has waited his turn behind Tyler Warren. Good blocker, good catcher of the football, not as dynamic of a receiver as Luke Reynolds. And I think that's probably what you look at, and you're going to see Khalil Dinkins have a really, really good football season. And then you're going to see the numbers for Luke Reynolds, and they're probably going to be much better. So he's got the potential to be a star at Penn State, and Penn State's done a really good job of just sort of building up that assembly line of tight ends. I know that it's really funny because you talk about the fan base and the frustration with where they're at, and the receiver conversation comes back to, well, why are they so focused on tight ends? Tight ends are really damn good. Like, they've been really good for a long time. So it's just a fascinating dynamic when you take a look at getting your best players the football, and your best players just happen to be 6'3" to 6'6", 250 pounds. I mean, it's a different way to look at it.
Well, and take people behind the curtain. Before we started recording, we were talking about a recent commitment to Penn State named Pierce Peterson from Minnesota, who looks like the next version of this. And he's He's a 6'5", 210-pound quarterback, linebacker, basketball player, track guy who Penn State projects as a tight end. Like, when you're good at something, lean into it. I don't have a problem with that at all, Sean.
Yeah, and you look at Luke Reynolds, who is a 6'4", 6'5". I think I checked this morning. He's listed at 250. He was a high school quarterback, just like that. He's a multi-sport athlete. He's a guy that had a lot of those athletic traits, and that's what Ty Howell and the Penn State have done. Is they've gone out, they've identified a size, range, and athletic number testing point trait sort of blueprint. And they've been pretty good at it. It's a room that's so good that they've got guys that are probably guys that can play in the Big Ten that aren't really going to see the field all that much. So I think it's a really interesting dynamic. And you've also you bring into play sort of what we've seen in the NFL is these tight ends that, yes, you need them to block. Khalil Dinkins, I think, is a tremendous blocker. But when you play 12 personnel, you can also put Luke Reynolds in the slot. You can put Luke Reynolds out wide. Like it doesn't hinder your offense to have more tight ends on the field. And I think that is kind of the stigma of playing a tight end heavy offense, is that it changes things. But if you got guys that can catch the football, you got guys that can score touchdowns, it doesn't matter as much in the long run.